Hello and welcome. We're about to dive into a topic that isn't just changing business, it's really reshaping the entire world as we know it.
In this module, we're going to explore AI-driven process transformation and intelligent automation. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but a great way to think about it is like this. These are the two big engines that are really driving the future of how companies work, innovate, and get ahead.
So let's start with the big picture, right? We're living in what you could call a whole new paradigm for business. It's about seeing AI as more than just another piece of software. It's a fundamental force that's completely rewriting the rulebook.
And that leads us to the big question we're going to keep asking. How does AI actually reshape the core of business operations? And, we're not just talking about minor improvements here. We're talking about a deep, foundational shift that can touch literally every part of a company.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this transformation, there are two key concepts we need to introduce. You can think of them as the pillars holding up this whole new way of doing things.
First, we'll introduce the concept of intelligent automation. And look, this is so much more than the basic robots you might picture. It's about building systems that can actually think, learn, and adapt on their own. And that, of course, completely changes how work gets done.
And our second pillar, we're going to touch on how AI applies to something called business process reengineering. The idea here is that with AI, we can go beyond just tweaking existing processes. We can completely rethink and redesign them from scratch.
All right, so theory is great, but how does this all work in the real world? Let's look at how these powerful ideas are creating tangible change across different parts of a business.
We're going to explore some use cases in key areas, things like finance and accounting, human resources, supply chain and logistics, and of course, customer support. We'll see how AI is being applied in each of these business functions.
Okay, so once we get a sense of what's possible, the next natural question is, how? How do you actually make it happen? That's when we'll turn our attention to the tools and strategies that are needed for implementation.
We'll give you an introduction to some of the tools and technologies for automation. But we'll also talk about crucial frameworks. For instance, we'll touch on something called enterprise-wide process mining. And we'll also introduce the idea of a center of excellence, or COE model, which is a way companies organize themselves to manage these big changes. Now, as you can imagine, a transformation on this scale needs some serious leadership. So we're also going to look at this from a leadership perspective. What does it take to guide these kinds of strategic projects? And leading this kind of change, well, it's not always easy. So we'll look at both sides of the coin. We'll touch on the common challenges you might run into during an AI-led transformation, but we'll also highlight the critical factors that really lead to success. Finally, that leads to a really important strategic question. Where do you even begin? This module is also going to cover how you can strategically prioritize which processes to tackle first so you can get the biggest impact for your efforts. In this module, you will explore how AI reshapes processes across the enterprise.